pleasure to launch the platform for today's webinar, convened under the powerful and timely theme, an effective and efficient public service built on a foundation of constitutional values. I wish to extend sincere gratitude to our distinguished speakers and to all participants who have made the time to be here with us on the platform today. Your presence underscores the urgency of this dialogue and your commitment to a public service that truly serves. Our Constitution, as the bedrock of South Africa's democracy, envisions a public service that is people-centered, that is professional and responsive, and one that advances human dignity, equality, accountability, and good governance. Yet, we are all acutely aware of the persistent challenges, uneven service delivery, resource constraints, lapses in accountability, and the urgent need to rebuild trust between the state and its citizens. We are really honored this morning to have among us today thought leaders, practitioners, policymakers, change makers. Their insights will help us interrogate how we can entrench professionalism, integrity, and innovation in our public service, and perhaps also how we can hold ourselves to the highest constitutional standards in the face of contemporary challenges. Esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, we've had some technical glitches on the side of our connectivity from the PSC, so please bear with us this morning. Our program will also be slightly amended. We are waiting for our chairperson to join us. In his absence, to do the welcome, I'm going to call on our DC, who's the Commissioner Mkolomba. Let me please allow myself to introduce Commissioner Mkolomba. I think it's important. I was planning to introduce our chairperson. Unfortunately, he's still going to be joining us. So our DC, who is the chairperson of our commission, holds 2 master's degrees. She has an MA in Sociology and Public Policy from the University of Cape Town. She has an MA in Masters in Poverty and Development from the University of Sussex in the UK. And she has completed executive leadership training on 21st century leadership at Harvard University and the Kennedy School of Government. Currently, our deputy chairperson is pursuing a PhD in sociology at the University of Cape Town with a dissertation topic on the professionalization of the state and rebuilding state institutional capabilities. In terms of her experience and career, she has over 12 years in the public service with about 8 years at senior management level. And obviously, her roles as the deputy chairperson of the PSC include dealing with the senior sector expert on economy, Department of Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation, and other departments, and of course, dealing with research, monitoring, evaluation, policy analysis. We really would like to welcome you, Deputy Chairperson. Sorry for putting you on the spot due to connectivity this morning, but it's over to you to give a hearty, warm welcome from the PSC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Marcus, our Program Director. So good morning to all our colleagues from the different parts of the government sector, our public sector, the public state. Welcome to the 6th webinar of the PSC Thought Leaders webinar this morning. The Public Service Commission, in collaboration with Accountability Lab, is hosting today's webinar under the theme Effective and Efficient Public Service Built on the Foundation of Constitutional Values and Principles. And Professor Bonang Mohale is the keynote speaker for today's webinar, supported by Accountability Lab. My job is the easy part this morning, which is basically to give you a brief highlight of who we are as a Public Service Commission and to speak about the PSC mandate, as well as to outline what the purpose of today's webinar is all about in terms of the theme and why we chose it and why we have quarterly webinars as a Public Service Commission across the public sector in the country. So the Public Service Commission is an independent body established in terms of Section 196 of the Constitution So we are a constitutional body, and we are instructed by the Constitution to protect our constitutional democracy and to maintain and promote effective and efficient administration and public services across the country, high standards of professional ethics in the public administration, and to promote public service excellence in the public sector. The main objective is to provide effective oversight over the public administration, including public entities, state-owned enterprises, and local government, according to the Constitution. The Public Service Commission is accountable to the National Assembly, and we also report to the relevant provincial legislatures across the 9 provinces of our country. And in executing our oversight mandate, we provide advice, make recommendation, propose measures, and issue directions when it comes to public administration, governance, and management. And that is basically who we are as a Public Service Commission. In terms of the actual functions of the Public Service Commission, there are about 6 main functions summarized as follows, as enshrined in the Constitution. Number 1 is to maintain the organization of the public service when it comes to the structural arrangements of departments in the public sector. Secondly is administration of the public service, meaning that we have to have a say in the procedures, policy frameworks, accountability mechanisms that are necessary for ensuring the functioning of the public sector. Thirdly, we play a role in personnel, procedures, and practices of the public service, which includes recruitment, transfers, promotions, and dismissals. Fourthly is public administration practice, and our role in that is that all the functions and activities executed by the public sector, we will provide oversight to make sure that the public sector provides the necessary services to our people. We promote adherence to applicable procedures in the public service, particularly when it comes to compliance to the letter and the law of prescribed rules, policies, and procedures. And most importantly, which is why we're here today, ours is to promote the constitutional values and principles as enshrined in Section 195 of our Constitution, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm done with a warm welcome from the Public Service Commission, and we hope that today not only will you be engaged and engaged constructively and productively and proactively in the debates and the discussions, but that today you will learn something or two about how to make sure that our constitutional values and principles become a lived, practical, pragmatic reality. Thank you so much, Commissioner Barkers. Should I then go on to the issue of the purpose of our webinar this morning, Commissioner Barkers? Or should I wait for you to introduce that section?
Kindly proceed, DC, so that in the interest of time.
Thank you. So, structurally, the Public Service Thought Leaders Forums are virtual online sessions for SMS, MMS, and frontline and back office public servants in South Africa's public service, which are held every quarter, 4 times a year. What we do as a Public Service Commission, we invite experts and practitioners who are experts in their fields of influence to speak about pertinent issues and topics affecting the public service, in particular the issue of public service practice. And the main reason why we've convened these PSC Thought Leaders Forums, ladies and gentlemen, as a brainchild of plenary and the Public Service Commission, is that we want to inculcate a culture in the public service of thinking about public sector practices, regulations, laws, and public sector reforms. We want to promote discussions and debates about public service practices, in particular in as far as they relate to our constitutional values and principles. We want to rebuild and build consciousness amongst public servants in the public service about practice, what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. And basically, it's envisioned that the webinars will cultivate leadership practice in the public service by building the capabilities we need, while at the same time grooming a new layer of public servant leaders who enjoy confidence and public trust from our citizenry. We want to teach and motivate public servants so that they have a great impact on how they should do and view their roles. And most importantly, we want to boost public service presence, increase public trust, and encourage forward thinking and forward looking about public sector practices. So we want to think and reflect about public sector practices and reforms, to think by doing and do by thinking. And that is basically why, as the Public Service Commission, we've introduced over the past 6 quarters these PSC thought leaders webinars. We are hoping that we'll develop a new breed and the next generation of public servant in South Africa's public service, one which is agile, competent, ethical, developmental, transformative, and service-orientated, building a new layer of public servant, a new breed of public servant who can and who cares. So we hope that today you will enjoy today's monumental webinar, and that we will think about public sector practices together, working strongly together. There's a saying that says, if you want to go fast, walk alone. But if you want to go far, walk together. So let's walk together. Let's think about public sector practices together. Together we will succeed in rising to build an effective and efficient public service, which is excellent, delivering inclusive services to all. Thank you very much, Commissioner Barkis, our Program Director for the day. And welcome once again to all colleagues, and we hope you do enjoy today's webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson of the Public Service Commission, Commissioner Mkolomba. Esteemed guests on the platform, we have been joined by our very own Chairperson of the Public Service Commission, Professor Somadota Figeni. I've been told to release my video. Am I visible? Okay. As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, Prof. Figeni is a global resource whom we try to keep chained in South Africa as much as we can. He has captained and steered diverse institutions from a variety of sectors, such as academia, public entities, cultural and religious institutions, civil society formations, and many, many agencies across the African continent and across the globe. As our leader of the PSC, Professor Figeni commands immense respect and support across the 3 arms of the state. And that is the absolute truth. And not just since he's been a chairperson, but for a long time. And he is regularly called upon by the leadership in our country to advise and guide on very complex matters. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests on the platform, to outline a few lines from the bio of the Prof. Figeni. I know he's going to have my head about it, but I do believe it's important for this august occasion. Professor Somadota Figeni, he hails from Lugolweni village in the Alfred Nzo district of the Eastern Cape in South Africa. His education polls are BA and BA Honours in Politics and Social Sciences from the University of Transkei, which is obviously now Walter Sisulu University. He has Masters in International Politics and Comparative Development from Queen's University in Canada. Also studied Peace and Political Studies at McMaster University in Canada, and of course the PhD in Comparative Politics and Public Policy Analysis from Michigan State University in the USA. Our chairperson's area of expertise and his interests are policy analysis, comparative politics, research methodology, international politics, political economy, and heritage, just to name a few. There's much more than that. In the interest of time, let me just do a few career highlights. Prof has been a lecturer in academic roles in various universities and research institutions. He's held leadership and managerial positions in the University of Transkei as the merger manager, and of course in the National Heritage Council as the founding COO and heritage manager. And of course, he's also the associate professor at the UNISA Thabo Mbeki School of Public and International Affairs. Just to also mention that our leader actually launched the first inaugural memorial lecture, Stan Sangweni lecture, the Saturday that just passed at UNISA, which was such an august occasion, attended by the likes of former President Thabo Mbeki and others. Currently, our chairperson is obviously the chair of the Commission of the Public Service Commission. And of course, he has other notable contributions where he serves and has served in various board roles, public and private entities over many years. He's an active person in political discourse and public discourse as a commentator, researcher, author, and even author on political, social, economic, and heritage issues, where he takes a vested interest and obviously really makes us proud as South Africans. He has held visiting professorships, been involved in institutional building, and doing so and making the PSC shine currently in his role. He has been involved in strategy development, and I can attest to the fact that annually, our provincial cabinet in KwaZulu-Natal, our legislatures call Prof. Figeni to run their strat planning sessions as an absolute great intellectual resource in our country. He's been recognized with honors and awards. And for example, most people don't know he has been honored with the chieftaincy from the country of Ghana. Prof. Figeni, you're a true patriot. You're a true servant of the people. Let us, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Prof. Figeni to share with us his message today on this important thought leadership webinar. Thank you. Are we able to project the camera for Prof?
He had his camera on just now.
Prof, can you release your camera and your audio, please? Ladies and gentlemen, we do apologize humbly. We are having immense connectivity issues today, but we are able to take things as far as we can. Can I ask somebody to please check with our chairperson?
I'll call him, Commissioner Marcus, and check what's going on.
Thank you, DC. We have released the camera of Prof. Mohale. For some reason, Prof, we're giving you another name today, Prof. Figeni. Humblest apologies, but it'll be an accolade.
In that case, I'll grow my feet very big to be able to fit in his shoes. Absolutely.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. I think they've released the video of the wrong professor.
Yeah, I think I've always been on. I kept my camera on, and I've been drinking coffee intermittently.
I think he keeps on being kicked out. He's been here since 9, but he keeps on being referred back to the main studio. So I've asked him to speak through my platform and to deliver the message of support. So the chairperson is online, ladies and gentlemen. He's speaking to us right now. Over to you, chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm really sorry about the gremlins which have been happening because I've been in the meeting since the beginning, but I had no control over the microphone or the video. I think I was moved to the audience. All I want to say, in the name of progress, it's better we focus on the lecture than the gremlins. And I'm very happy to be joined by my brother, who has been a public intellectual and a frequent publisher, and a person who keeps stoking our conscience and highlighting the challenges of our society. There is no greater challenge today than the one of focusing on building state capacity, on having an ethical public service, because it is an enabler for everything that we can think of, whether you want the economy to grow, or law enforcement and security, or you want to be globally competitive, you want to provide services. It all boils down to whether we have a professional, ethical, technically sound public administration. I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and sorry about the gremlins, but we're really appreciative that you are here on the platform with us today. As we proceed, may I now introduce in the program our esteemed guest, Prof. Mohale. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen on the platform, to read the bio for Prof. Mohale. Professor Bonang Mohale is the Chancellor of the University of the Free State. He's a former president of Business Unity South Africa, popularly known as BUSA. He's also professor of practice in the Johannesburg Business School in the Faculty of Business and Economics, and chairman of 2 listed entities, the Bidvest Group Limited and ArcelorMittal, as well as Swiss Re Corporate Solutions Africa and SPV Services. He has been appointed the Sherpa of the Values 20, V20, a global community of values-driven experts and practitioners dedicated to engaging meaningfully with the Group of 20. Launched in 2022 during Saudi Arabia's G20 presidency, and the V20, which is also an informal engagement group that develops value-based, human-centered policy proposals for the G20. The community's vision is to deepen the integration of values into public policy, aiming to provide evidence-based, people-centered solutions to global challenges. The V20 focuses on how we, as global citizens, can collectively and conscientiously apply values to improve the well-being of people on the planet. In 2022, Prof. Mohale was asked to convene, moderate and chair the Eskom electricity crisis roundtables, partnering to address the generation capacity shortfall with the aim to identify levers to immediately close the generation capacity gap and address structural constraints to a sustainable future of the electricity sector. He is a member of the Community of Chairpersons, the COC, of the World Economic Forum, and author of the 2 best-selling books. One, Lift as You Rise, and the second one, Behold the Turtle. In November 2001, he received the Presidential Award for his servanthood in South African industry and the economic empowerment of previously disadvantaged individuals. Prof. Mohale is the recipient of the 2025 Empower Woman Ally Award, which honors a man who demonstrates exceptional commitment and strategic action in championing women's advancement, using his influence to dismantle barriers and to foster equitable leadership ecosystem. In 2025, Prof received the number 43 Trelawney Park Kwamagowo Award in Eswatini during the 60th anniversary gala dinner. In 2025, he received the Lifetime Leadership Award by the Future of Leadership Awards under the auspices of the Future of Jobs Summit in recognition for his lifelong dedication, his wisdom, and unwavering commitment to leadership. In 2025 again, he had received the coveted and historic 9th Diamond Awards in Global Educational Leadership by the Board of Trustees of the Not Alone Foundation. The Most Reverend, which is also an incorporation held on the grounds of the civil, social, and human rights pioneer at the Most Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the Sacred Cathedral, the International Chapel, Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. Also is the African Union's Lifetime Achievement Award 2024 at the Africa Korean Gala Awards, 2024 again, Society for Industrial and Organizational Psychology of South Africa, Special Presidential Business Leadership Award, 2023, the ME Vision Academy Awards, exclusive recognition in successful leadership. And he has been included in the Reputation Poll International's 2023 list of 100 most reputable Africans. And we really are proud to host such an august leader in our country at our thought leadership, such an eminent person. No pun on the word eminent person. Let us today welcome Prof. Mohale to share his message with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. The haunting words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. ring true today more than at any other time in the history of our country, but also in the history of the world, that we are prone to judge success by the index of our salaries or the size of our cars, rather than by the quality of our service or even the quality of our relationships, especially these relationships to humanity. Because where there is no hope in the future, there's clearly no power in the present. Similarly, the values of a country are not to be measured by its constitution on the one hand, but by its budget on the other, especially because developed countries are not those where the poor can afford cars, but where the rich use public transport. Ethics is what happens when nobody's watching. Values are ideals. They are beliefs and overall conceptions that a group or even an individual, a society, a community hold very dear towards themselves, but also to the world, and aligns their conceptions, their behaviors, their motivations, their perceptions, but even their personalities in a manner that is essential for determining what is desirable or undesirable initially to themselves. Because remember that our first accountability is family. So these values for me are our own private meanings that we attach even to objects, events, ideas, and relationships. And any differences in meaning are down to us, not to the values themselves. Generally, people are predisposed to adopt the values that are raised by a dominant culture, but also by how they engage, interact, and interface with the rest of the world. And they tend to believe that those values that they are familiar with must be the right ones because they are the values of their particular culture. They are critical in building a cohesive society as one that works towards the well-being, not just of you as an individual, but of an entire society. They also help us to fight all forms of exclusion and marginalization. But values create a sense of belonging. They promote trust and offers its people the opportunity of upward mobility. This is important. You can't talk about values and ethics in the self-perpetuating vicious cycle of abject poverty. There must be some upward mobility. At the heart of social cohesion is the notion that relationships among members and groups in society are sufficiently good and that all feel a sense of belonging and ownership, that they perceive the whole society as greater than the parts, and when differences develop, they can be dealt with peacefully. In socially cohesive societies, there is generally an absence of latent social conflict. For example, conflict based on wealth, ethnicity, race, and even gender. There's a general presence of strong social bonds. For example, civic society, responsive democracy, and impartial law enforcement. So for me, it involves building shared values and communities of interpretation, reducing disparities in wealth and income, and generally enabling people to have a sense that they are engaged in a common enterprise, facing shared challenges, and that they are members of the same community. For me, social cohesion drives long-term prosperity and competitiveness because cohesive societies are politically stable and focus on economic growth. Overall, I think it allows everybody in society to share equitably in prosperity. When people are left behind, they don't feel this sense of belonging and ownership. So South Africans must integrate ethics, good governance, and values like dignity. Because there's no dignity when a grown-up man wakes up in the morning without knowing on that day what he's going to do, rather than sit on that side of the heart where the sun shines and he moves his seat around just to follow the warmth. But we're brought up on concepts like Ubuntu, and I believe that we are losing it because Ubuntu and equity in our daily lives, it's about regularly practicing random acts of kindness and senseless acts of beauty. When you can see beauty in nature, in the blue skies, African sunshine, precisely because the most beautiful soul is the one who survived the fire and yet chooses to come back with water to help those still struggling within it. You don't just say, oh, I've survived, I've lived, I'm going to thank my forebears for saving me. Conscience, therefore, is our connection to true worth and to the principles that make peace a quality of life possible. Family as only one of 4 core values. The others for me are honesty, integrity, and respect. Is the most important value in life because it provides a sense of belonging and security. Having a loving, kind, supportive, and considerate family to tend to helps to anchor us and bring stability, joy, and comfort. These values are crucial for any interaction and for creating a connection with the outside world. We must therefore continue to be the infinite hope of slaves who never stop believing in the beauty of their dreams, who see peace because they themselves are peace-seeking people, desperate and desperate for a better future. All of us must urge all the 4 social partners, especially business, because business is the only one that understands this concept of project management, of how to deliver mega projects on time, in full, and on budget. Not only to fully comply with all laws, but to be a good corporate citizen, an active participant who exercises good cooperative governance. And cooperative governance in my book is defined as a separation of ownership from control in finding common ground, common purpose, and greater good by, amongst others, rooting out and defeating state capture, especially today being the very first day of the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, where all of us stand accused that even the guards who are guarding the guards, they themselves are fraternizing with murderers, rapists, and known criminals, where in our hospitals, it's the criminals that continue to be awarded these tenders decade in and decade out, because in the middle of all our crises, this ANC-led government is central. Somebody is eating, somebody is enabling this. In other words, 31 years of democracy have taught us that actually it's this ANC-led government which is an organized crime syndicate. You only have to look at all our commissioners of police. Only one finished their term. All others were tainted. From the days of Jackie Silebe, my hands are clean. Glenn Atlioti is my friend, finish and clear. It is the politicians and the powerful that are seen in the houses of those who bribe, steal, and cheat. So I think for all of us, we as a country need, more than anything else, it's probably some form of conscientiousness. We need patriotic business. Because you see, when business creates jobs, it's not an act of corporate social investment. They're creating a market of the future. So it's manifestly in their own interest to make sure that their own employees can afford the goods and the services they provide. Because there's a problem when your own employees can't afford the goods that you produce. Sir Henry Royce reminds us that, is it possible to find something that is already good and make it better? The other, Henry T. Ford, who gave us the Model T Ford, says we want to build cars that our own people can afford. So I think business is not our second chance. Business is our last chance, because business no longer really has a choice about publicly declaring the values that are near and dear to us, that we adhere to, and about making a vocal stand about these. It is now expected of business. You see, South Africa believes that business now bears equal responsibility with all our social partners to drive positive social change. So maybe to end on probably one or two anecdotes. The first is really just to say, isn't it amazing that 31 years into democracy, poverty still has primarily a black and feminine face? Put differently, that if wealth is the inevitable outcome of both hard work and enterprise, then every woman in Africa should be a dollar billionaire. And if they are not dollar billionaires, then there's something wrong with how we acknowledge the contribution of women. In South Africa, 65 million of us, 52.5 of them happen to be female. And yet their representation in positions of leadership is less than 24%, African women, less than 4%. So it is that as we contemplate a new role in the next 31 years, that we find solace in the words of the very first ANC president to be a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, King Albert Luthuli, when he opines that you don't want even your fiercest enemy at their weakest to exclude you as part of the solution. Maybe, just maybe, the words of ZAPU's Joshua Nkomo need to find more meaning and purpose today. That's something that came late in my life, is that it is possible for a country to obtain its political liberation without its people being free. That even Mikhail Gorbachev, who gave us perestroika and glasnost, says we knew that the party was over when all we could do is talk about our past. The value, the utility is in the question and answers, is in the dialogue that we are going to have. And Chair, I just wanted to be provocative as I end to say, Chinua Achebe is a poet and an author. And it reminds us that he is a fool, he who treats his own brother worse than a stranger. That when brothers fight to death, a stranger will inherit your father's estate. That a brother that has done wrong needs to be supported, not blamed. That anger with your own brother must be only skin deep, not bone deep. So I am hoping that as we envision, we conceptualize 31 years into democracy, the 298 local councillors in KwaZulu-Natal alone who are illiterate, because that's what the report says, unlearned and unlettered. And yet we expect them to provide oversight on the second biggest province of South Africa, where Gauteng is probably 30 to 35% of the provincial GDP. And KZN is 16, Western Cape at 14. But when you look at how the Western Cape is marketing itself, you'd be forgiven to think that they're bigger than KwaZulu-Natal. That if Gauteng was an African country, it would be number 7 in terms of its GDP, bigger than the economy of Tanzania and Kenya. And yet is the one that we play with. In 7 years, we've had 6 mayors, not realizing that here's an instrument that we could have used to take our people from the self-perpetuating vicious cycle of abject poverty. So if this is our land, where our stories and what our whispers, because our story can't just be another failed African country. Chair, with your permission, maybe let me shut up and take some questions, comments, and thanks for the opportunity. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mohale. I think I just want to add, it was a very serious submission that you've made. I just want to highlight some of the things you've made. We'll take the questions in the next round after Prof. Nakedi has spoken. I think what you're sharing with us was so deep that I got lost and I even forgot to take notes. It's a huge compliment to you. I was just imbibing all that you were saying. So what Prof said is our first accountability is to family. Let us remember that. That is such a deep, important point that we have lost touch and lost sight of. That South Africans must integrate ethics, good governance, and values, and that we need to do this to work on the dignity of human beings. Prof also pointed out the difference between ownership and control. He said we need some form of conscientiousness and that businesses need to be patriotic and to create jobs, not just to be bottom line driven, I'm sure. That anger with your brother, and this is something I'm definitely taking away, as something I can repeat in other places and share, that anger with your brother must be skin deep and not bone deep. That is so intense. Calls for a lot of reflection, Prof, on this particular sentiment. That you also raised the issue of the quality of our local leadership and whether they are equipped to handle the responsibilities, their positions, and the decisions they have to make at the local municipalities. After that serious submission, and we're going to have much more time to engage Professor ourselves on the platform, let me share something lighter, Prof. A citizen once asked me, why does it take so long for government forms to be processed? So what I had to tell them is that it doesn't really take long. It's just that we take democracy so seriously that we give every form a fair chance to be heard. So with that having been said, it is now my pleasure to call upon one of our very own thought leaders from the Public Service Commission, Commissioner Professor Nakedi. Professor will address, can somebody please mute? I'm getting a lot of throwback from somebody. Somebody has unmuted. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and thank you, ladies and
Commissioner.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Prof. Nakedi this morning is going to address us on the topic of getting public servants to be more intentional in improving service delivery. And so I'll have the pleasure of introducing Prof's bio first before you meet our esteemed Professor Commissioner Nakedi. Known as Brian Itumeleng Nakedi, Prof serves as the resident Public Service Commissioner, obviously, of the Free State Province in South Africa. He is interested in the following learning environments: good governance, public and ethical leadership, public administration and management, public law, company law, development studies and social justice, including human rights, law, entrepreneurial and business development, church history, and public theology. Insofar as the calls for Prof Nakedi matriculated in Pretoria and is a Ruth First Scholar and Bezait University Scholar from Palestine and a recipient of Africa Educational Trust Scholarship, Manchester, UK, amongst other sponsors. He also received professional training for senior education managers from UNESCO and Paris in 1994, and leadership skills training for the 21st century sponsored by South African Education Project at Madingley College, Cambridge University in 1993. He acquired academic training from universities, including his BA Honours in Sociology and Social Policy from Durham University in the UK, his Masters in Economic Development Studies from University of Manchester in the UK, and then, of course, he did a postgraduate certificate in Advanced Administrative Law and a postgraduate certificate in Access to Information at the University of Witwatersrand, completing his dissertation for his MPhil on Human Rights Law at the University of Pretoria, and, of course, an advanced diploma in theology at the University of Free State. Prof's professional managerial experience was gained through various institutions, including as an adjunct professor in entrepreneurial and business development at the Central University of Technology. He's been a lecturer in public management administration at the UFS, a senior research assistant in the Center for Policy Studies at WITS. And of course, he has a lot of local government experience as well. He's been a municipal manager at Mafikeng local municipality. He's also been an insolvency practitioner at the Master of the High Court of South Africa, chairperson of the Executive Committee in Bloemfontein City Council, and strategic manager and policy advisor to Department of Education in the Free State. He's also been the coordinator of the South African Committee for Higher Education, the SAHED Trust, and joint coordinator for Zabalaza International Cultural Ensemble, South Africa and London, and organizer of the South African Allied Workers Union, which is known as SAU. A lot of research experience by Prof, where he has achieved professional and research milestones, which include professional presentations on the Balance Scorecard, Performance Management System, Morowa Consulting for Professional Services in Sandton there. He has an unpublished research report on housing for the Pretoria Witwatersrand Vereniging. And he has co-authored with Mark Swilling, Richard Tomlinson, and Lawrence Schlemmer, amongst others. Really amazing publicist. Center for Policy Studies. He's been a researcher for the Land Claims Commission and administered the Matwabeng and Maranta land restitution claims in the Free State. And he's done many publications, including formerly banned publication called Behind the Curtains of Botshabelo. He's also done a review of the African political economy and the people of Herschel in popular struggles in South Africa. And he's both co-authored with William Corbett that publication. He also has other unpublished papers on local government development studies and human rights law. And I'm hoping he's trying to bring it out and publish it soon, Prof. In addition, you have authored the Mangaung Satisfaction Survey Research Report in collaboration with the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences, and you've also co-authored the report on racism at the Institute for Social Justice with J.C. van der Merwe and John Samuel, Andre Keed, and Alan Busa, amongst others. Prof has also offered training and workshops to councillors in governance and public management for SALGA and local government theatre, amongst other such projects. Prof Nakedi is also a former board member of, he served as the deputy chairperson of Bloem Water Board. He's been a member of the Geographic Naming Council, Free State, and he's also been the deputy chairperson of the Free State Heritage Council. He served in NGOs and professional associations such as the 21st Century Trust, South African Council of Churches. He's been coordinator of the Urban Rural Mission and the World Council of Churches, South African Network for the Homeless Johannesburg, Ipahamiseng Trust for the Homeless Children in Mangaung, and the Strategic Dialogue and the South African Restructuring and Insolvency Practitioners Association. Commissioner Brian Itumoleng Nakedi is a practicing Christian and affiliated to the Anglican Clergy, Diocese of the Free State. We welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Commissioner Nakedi, who's a resident commissioner of the Free State, to share his message with us today. Welcome, Professor. Prof, you are audible and you are visible now.
Thank you very much, Chair, Commissioner Baccus, for your kind way of introduction. And may I just take this opportunity to recognize Chairperson of the Public Service Commission, Professor Fikeni, and also the Deputy Chairperson, Zuki Mkolomba, and also say hi to our own Honorable Professor Bonam Mohale, and yourself, Chair, and Commissioner Sekonya Makerola, and all other colleagues on the platform. Thank you very much for having us this morning. It has been an interesting morning indeed, and I would just go straight into my assignment And I would like to say, this very month of September, it's a public service month. This then gives us an honor and responsibility for the Public Service Commission to host this thought leadership webinar under this topic of, I quote, efficient and effective public service built on the foundation of constitutional values and principles, close quotes. Therefore, this addresses the effects and of our work, but also affect every citizen of our country. In other words, the importance of delivering quality of services, as has been alluded to earlier on, to the clients or communities is very, very critical. When people interact with the public sector, they actually are not simply accessing services. They are placing their entire trust on us as the public servants and calling upon us to say, look here, we believe you will meet us at our point of need. And that is a trust that is bestowed on us that we often break. And unfortunately, it is something that we also suggest from time to time that we have to adhere to it and deliver. But often, unfortunately, we are breaking it. And that needs to be corrected as we continue working. And Chair, our quality service delivery is not just about ticking these boxes for malicious practices, but it is really, as Prof. Mohale has said, an attempt, an endeavor to ensure that we give back the dignity to the people. It is about ensuring that every South African citizen, irrespective of his socio-economic background, they feel that their dignity is recognized and they feel respected. When a mother waits for a social grant and a learner relies on a school feeding program, a patient comes to the public hospital, what they actually receive from us is not just a service, but a reflection of how much this government cares about them. In other words, we must remember that we are not only employees of the state, but we are also custodians of hope to these very people. In other words, in every interaction we have with the citizens, the power that we must actually utilize is to build trust and not break it. We must be able to uplift communities and not discourage them. The challenge before us really is very clear. We have to be intentional about how we deliver services and very much deliberate in what we are doing. Therefore, this needs really a lot of passion from us with what we are doing, and not just occupying spaces for the sake of being recognized in those spaces and doing nothing about impacting on the lives of people in a positive way. So as we want to really embark on this developmental journey, our intentionality should mean that we go beyond the minimum targets. In other words, it means we have to keep asking ourselves questions. How can I make this process easier for this next needy person? How can I reduce the waiting time for this mother who is frail, this mother who is on the margin of the economy? How can I demonstrate respect and empathy to the needy? Therefore, Chair, this means that when we see people, we must recognize humanity and not, people who are just documented in terms of files, but human beings whose identity is correlated with that they are supposed to be receiving as services from us. In other words, their dreams have to be realized through our very act of public service. We live in a country, Chair, that is very rich in terms of socioeconomic potential and development, but this potential we can only realize if the public sector, very much bigger sector in any economy, becomes the heartbeat of progress and development. Each of us here today and elsewhere in our own spaces of work and social development, we have the power to shift the mindset. We can deliberately improve through our work systems and lead from the front by setting good public service as public servants, good examples thereof. So really our message is to encourage all of us to recommit ourselves to the constitutional values and principles so we can ensure excellence in the delivery of public service. We have to, without any doubt and without any sort of waste of time, embrace the public ethos that come with the space and ensure that we innovate, we become accountable, our empathy must be visible in our actions, and we must not only serve, but it has to be a public duty because it is our calling, because we're in the public space. I don't think anyone would want to be in the public space unless there is a calling for that, particularly for public servants who really have been trained well in other spaces, professions, and so on. There could be other options. But the fact that we are here demonstrates the courage and the commitment, the willingness, particularly the discipline to ensure that our impact on development is seen to be done through actions that reflect accountability, commitment, and principles and values of the Constitution. Therefore, our quality of service must not just be a dream, but it has to be a shared responsibility common to all of us as public servants. Comrade Chair, as the Commissioner, as we play our part in this endeavor, we can really become our own reality. And in terms of Section 195 of the Constitution, these particular issues, as part of our mandate as the Public Service Commission, are outlined. For example, the basic values and principles really are teaching us to govern public service in a proper manner. And amongst other issues that we have to really keep reminding ourselves, citing two examples. A would be ensuring a high standard of professional ethics that must be promoted and maintained at all times. As public servants, ensure that we actually become agent of change and also conduct our duties through a performance that is a call of duty, but also we ensure sustained interactions with members of the public and ensure that the management of the state resources are done in a very proper and responsible manner so it can benefit more people than we can see with our own eyes. There are those who are invisible to us. We have to make them visible in their own lives through a better kind of life that they must live, continue to give hope and promote the ethics and values of the Constitution, irrespective of who we know, who we see, or who we don't see. So secondly, there has to be an efficient and economic use of our resources, which we have to promote throughout all spheres of government without failure, and continue to really do our work without fear, favor, or prejudice as public servants in the Public Service Commission. We must live during this tough period of the economy, of the austerity budgets, a legacy that shows that we can do more with less, but also encourage our own state to continue to commit to the developmental trajectory of the Constitution as outlined in our own constitutional values and principles and foundational laws, but also, as we may look at the National Development Plan and the medium-term development and so on, those are the issues that we need to embrace at all times and accept the concept of doing more with less, as we have stated. Chairperson, the public administration must really continue to be development-oriented. We have observed with really agony how this has been reversed continuously, whereby public servants become, their own law unto themselves. This now cascading into the political space and leaders, and really it's a travesty of justice. That needs to revert to where it's supposed to be, a public service that is development oriented. South Africa is an equal country, and the West in the entire world must play a pivotal role in ensuring that with the little that we have, we must share with people so we can ensure a better life for all and reduce the socio-economic inequalities. It is really a call for duty, and it's not something that is negotiable. The services that we provide have to be done so in a very fair manner that is impartial, equitable, and without any bias or prejudices that may include race, that may include, if you like, cultural stereotypes, gender, and so on, and continue to provide our services with very much focus, without any preferential treatment and any kind of deliberate discrimination of any form or kind. So we need to be public servants to the core through our hearts. People need to be responsive in doing their work so that the needs of the community can actually be responded to. The public must actually be encouraged continuously to participate in their own policy making, decision making, and actually governance. So public administration is nothing else but a platform that has become a government tool that must be accountable as servants of the people. We must be also accessible and answerable to our own constituencies, and ensure that our actions reflect the ethos of public service. Transparency is one of the key principles that we have to focus on as a value, but also foster within the public environment so that accessibility and accurate sharing of data and so on becomes an issue that does not have hindrance at all, and people can make their own decisions and access these services. So good human resource continue to be a practice that must inform career development and also ensure maximization of human potential, which we must cultivate in our space. The success of the public service really depends on our own capacity and capability so that we can deliver these services to the people, our own citizens, our clients, our communities, and the basis thereof must be so critical and help us in ensuring that as we professionalize the public service, we also reciprocate with a service that reflect what we refer to as professionalization of the public service, not just rhetoric. Rhetoric is something that we are very good at, but actions is something that we are found wanting on. As the Public Service Commission, we appeal to all of us to become resolute in ensuring that human resource is a tool and not a weapon against our own people. Public administration chair must be broadly representative in line with our own South African ethos that characterize us as people oriented towards non-racialism, non-sexism, and culturally diverse, inclusive of all people with disabilities, and celebrating who we are as a people, including people who are our own neighbors that we have suffered together, toiled together in the struggle to get where we are today. So we need to think about ways and means through which we can ensure that as we are wrestling with these issues as a country, how do we deal with issues that really are unavoidable in terms of who we are as a people, and how do we define ourselves? So it's something that really goes beyond the space of public administration, but that we must become conscious of. Now, with our own employment and personnel management practices that are based on our own ability and objectivity, fairness, and the need to address these imbalances of the past, that will be speaking to what we may term broader representation beyond our national boundaries, but actually working with our own neighbors to ensure that development is more regional than nationalistic, much as the priorities of the national citizen would always take precedence. However, Chair, these constitutional values and principles must continue to guide the public servants and everyone who is actually occupying public space, including the public leaders, when we discharge our duties in our efforts to ensure that we professionalize this public service and we continue to build an ethical and capable state that reflects the constitutional values and principles as we want to see them reflecting in what we practice in our space. So this is the direction that we want to take. It's our compass, and we would want to really this morning say, we are sharing with this with you this morning because we believe in it, we are passionate about it, and if we can continue to be conscientious and to continue to really retain our memory historically, where we come from, and become their agents of change who are socially conscious, we do not see obstacles that may really impede us in our endeavor to a proper public administration, public service, and a professionalized public administration. We wish to thank you this morning and really applaud the contributions that have been made. Thank you very much, Chair. I wish to thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Prof. Nakedi. Indeed, you had so much to share with us, reflections and proposals, and good, solid advice as well. You called for the intentional and deliberate delivery of services. You emphasized the principle of humanity first, which is so important, and to obviously demonstrate respect for the needy. You also said we have the power to shift the mindset. And I think some of these platforms that we are engaging in, taking the advice and the proposals of various thought leaders, really help to shift the mindset. We need to recommit ourselves to the CVPs to ensure excellence. You know, it really pains me to see how people speak so widely of the Constitution, but so seldom embody the founding principles and the values of the Constitution. We just like to throw the name around and say the Constitution of South Africa. However, you'll find that a lot of the characters who throw this name around don't actually embody the principles and values. We called for actions that demonstrate accountability, integrity, and ethical conduct. Indeed, this is a call we can't stop making. You asked for the fair and equitable distribution of services. So important. It's how we started our democracy. It's what we based it on. That was our vision. The public to be encouraged in policy making and decision making, and really we need a more active citizenry. We honestly need that. We need people to get active. We need to do a lot of messaging out there. We need to do a lot of campaigning to ask the citizens to get involved in designing these things and making solid contributions so that policies can respond to the needs of people on the ground. I know, Prof, that you will be key in driving the monitoring of the professionalization framework by the Public Service Commission. You are so passionate about this. And of course, for the short time that we have met and worked with you as a new commissioner, you really do exemplify the professionalization framework in all its tenets and its 5 principles, or its 5 pillars, I should say. Prof, you are very passionate about the issues of water. I know, water access. So I'm sharing an anecdote just for you, Prof. It's called The Unsung Hero. And the story goes like this. Once, during a major storm, while politicians were giving laborious speeches at an event and at a venue, it was the quiet municipal worker who cleared a blocked drain that saved the whole street from flooding. Remember, there was a storm while these laborious speeches that were taking place. That's the essence of public service. It's not always glamorous, but it makes a real difference. It's about the dignity of that human being who unblocked the drain. It's about respecting that person's role and the impact of that unblocked drain on the entire community around that area. That's what true service actually looks like. It's not all those people who are getting the Premier's Excellence Awards, etc. True service starts right at the ground, where we're able to open our taps and get water, switch the light, put the switch on, and lights come through, and see the people who get up long before we do, at 3 to 4 a.m., and clean our streets and deliver safe roads for us. True service is quiet, it is steady, and it is impactful. Distinguished guests, we have heard from two of our most valuable thought leaders in our country. Clear messaging, clear direction. And we know that beyond today, there's just so much they contribute to. I've said it very clearly in their bios. They work across the world. We now invite the civil society agency, Accountability, led by Roshni and her team, to share a short video with us, which aligns to the discussion today. May we please play the video?
Ms. Adams, you may go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everybody. And thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. I'm Sheena Adams. I'm the Global Communications Director at Accountability Lab. And we're really proud of our partnership with the Public Service Commission and grateful for the platform today to share a little bit about our work, and in particular, a campaign that celebrates public servants around the world called Integrity Icon. Just want to get my slides up. And I'll be presenting today with a colleague of mine, Nasira Noor Mohammed, who is our Global Communications and Marketing Manager. So a little bit about Accountability Lab. We're a global NGO, and we believe in making governance work for people. We support active citizens, accountable institutions, and responsible leaders. And we do this through a variety of creative integrity initiatives and campaigns. Integrity Icon is one of our flagship programs. It's a citizen-powered campaign that names and fames honest government officials and connects them into regional reform networks. It started in Nepal 13 years ago now, and is currently active in 11 countries around the world, from South Asia to all the regions of Africa, and also in Latin America. And then lastly, we have a citywide campaign that we do with partners in the city of Philadelphia in the United States. So why do we do this? I think we all know, and as we've heard, the public service is often full of millions of people who lead with honesty and care, but their stories are often invisible. The stories that do make it to the headlines are often quite negative, about corruption or failures in different departments or failures of different local systems. And we found that public servants who do the right thing consistently really get recognition. We do this campaign also to encourage young people to get into the public service and see it as a viable career option. And also to prove that government can be a really strong place of purpose. And I think one of our mottos is that integrity isn't rare, it's just really rewarded. And so that's something that we are trying to shift. So Integrity Icon is driven by citizens. That's a really important point to make. Very much an independent campaign led by communities. We try to celebrate public servants who embody values of fairness, accountability, and dignity. We engage citizens through nominations and voting. making integrity a shared story that we can then build on and leverage. We create mini documentaries, and I'll share a little bit about the process that we then share widely on TV, radio, online, and in community spaces to instigate dialogue around what accountability and integrity in the public service looks like and how to attain it. And then ultimately, we're trying to build a global network of reformers who continue shaping governance after the ceremony. So the ceremony where we award winners is really just the beginning of the process. And it's not about perfection, it's really about persistence and service. I think we've heard that message also earlier today. So a little bit about the process and how it works. We start with a launch, we then have this process of nominations, and then eventually make our way through the filming of the documentaries and the final ceremony, where we then start to build these ongoing relationships to really embed integrity. I won't go through all this detail, but I think what's important to note is we work with an independent panel of judges who help us identify who the 5 winning public servants are in the different countries that we run this. The PSC has volunteer judges before, and they've also been speakers at our ceremony, and we're so grateful for the legitimacy that that has brought to the campaign here in South Africa. In terms of the nominations, we're really looking for inclusivity, making sure we cast a really wide net and get nominations from all provinces, urban areas, peri-urban, rural areas as well, and try and really build equity into the way that we do this outreach. In terms of finalists and kind of what we are measuring, we have really strict vetting guidelines around fairness and transparency. And what we're measuring are kind of deliberation records, efforts that these icons have made to implement reforms, whether micro reforms in a small department or more macro things, like, for example, we had doctors that introduced really transformative vaccination schedules during COVID, for example. So these reforms take on very different shapes depending on the context of the nomination of the people who are being nominated. We look at demographic spread, and then we look at that balance between honest and changemaker profiles. We aren't looking for people who are meeting their KPIs. We are looking for those people that generally go above and beyond the call of duty consistently, and really embed honesty, integrity, and accountability in the way that they work every day. The mini documentaries are often created with the help of young film fellows that we get in who shadow the icons, as well as a sort of professional filmmaker who helps create these stories. And so learning and skills development and, very kind of bottom-up narrative development is an intrinsic part of this campaign. We produce 5 short films that tell the stories of these icons. And the films serve to really embed these kind of role model narratives that help shift norms and narratives at the end of the day. And in terms of what we're measuring for this cycle is the ability of the icons to influence departments and their colleagues, as well as the storytelling impact. We have a national system of voting. So again, very much citizen-led in terms of who ultimately wins the campaign. We'll draw up a list of about 20 finalists. These are then put to a vote internally with the team. And the judges then help us narrow that down to the 5 who are ultimately chosen. And the final ceremony is a massive event for everybody concerned. We invite the icons, their families, their managers, their colleagues to a ceremony, and in front of a wide selection of media, we really do our best to help celebrate them, their teams, and obviously the work that they have accomplished over many years in the public service. And here we kind of measuring the audience, the perceptions of the icons, of the public service in general, and obviously shifts in attitude towards the public service. Once the celebration is done, we then kind of create these regional networks of icons, support learning between them, helping them realize that even though it can sometimes, particularly in a maligned department, be quite a lonely journey, that there's often connections that can be made. And sometimes these are even across borders. So for example, in this region, we have done Integrity Icon in Zimbabwe and tried to create links with the winners there. Same story with Kenya and Uganda, where we've run regional campaigns. We really are trying to kind of bolster these regional reform networks so that these icons, from a peer learning perspective, can learn from each other and continue to feel encouraged and motivated to do the good work. And again, what we're kind of measuring on an ongoing basis is policy and behavioral changes, recognition beyond just the lab. So often these icons, as a result of being motivated in their job and the kind of opportunities that come their way after the win, are put up for much bigger promotions and other kind of opportunities, whether that's speaking on international platforms, representing the public service, and then at the end, the kind of growth of this icon network around the world. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Nasira to tell us a little bit about why this campaign works and then also share some case studies. Over to you, Naz.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sheena. So you did a fabulous job of laying out the context so powerfully. And I'll now demonstrate why Integrity Icon matters in practice through the stories and impact we've seen across countries. So when people ask us why Integrity Icon works, the answer is simple. It changes the story. Instead of corruption being the only thing we hear about, it reminds us that integrity exists and it's powerful. It lifts morale inside institutions because recognition matters. It engages citizens by letting communities define what good service looks like. And it sparks reform because once you shine a light on these icons, they often go on to mentor, innovate, and push for even bigger changes. In short, we name and fame honest public servants, and that shifts culture. And there's been ripple effects. So the impact doesn't stop with the award. In every country where Integrity Icon runs, the ripple effects are real, from fairer hiring practices to stronger trust between citizens and public servants. At a time where cynicism about government is so high, these icons bring something hopeful. They show persistence, dignity, and service in action, and they remind us that institutions can actually feel humane. The truth is, the impact doesn't end with the award. It often begins there, as Sheena has mentioned. So let's take you through to some parts of the world. Let's look at Nepal, for example. Samila Subedi used the credibility she gained as an icon to push for better maternal health services and sanitation programs in remote areas. Her recognition shifted how communities saw government clinics, from places of distrust to places of support. And in Mexico, Susana, who defends women wrongfully imprisoned, gained visibility as an icon that amplified her advocacy. She was able to set historic precedents in gender-based justice and push nationally for reforms to protect women's rights. So this is what happens when we name and fame people doing the right thing. Their influence multiplies. And then back home in Nigeria, Ezekiel used his award to strengthen procurement systems in Edo State, mentoring younger officers and embedding transparency in public structures. We also had Inspector Kamoshi Tada, who leveraged her recognition to promote community-centered policing and reintegration programs for former inmates. And then again, across all the way to the USA, Nathan Salad, he turned his recognition into a platform for peace building. He transformed personal trauma into a movement for community healing. Proof that recognition gives leaders the visibility and resources they need to make lasting change. So what we're learning is integrity can definitely be made visible. That's what Integrity Icon is really about, making integrity visible. These aren't flashy stories of power or privilege. their everyday acts of service that might otherwise go unnoticed, until we name and fame them. Suddenly, integrity isn't abstract anymore. It has a face, a name, and most importantly, a story. And here in our very home, South Africa, we saw this in the story of Adele, a foundation phase teacher who created Adopt a Learner to ensure no child was excluded from school because of poverty. After becoming an icon, she partnered to develop innovative teaching resources that boosted literacy and creativity. Her recognition gave her the platform to scale her impact from one classroom to other communities. And then we have another icon. And this was actually an adaptation of Integrity Icon, where we had learned from our South African team that there was a need to also explore the LGBTQ+ community. And this is the innovation that comes with Integrity Icon. And this is the story of Nhlanhla Fiona, recognized through our Queer Voices Unlocked initiative. She was honored for her courageous advocacy in the LGBTQ+ community, and was able to make sure that people would recognize the necessary impact that this community holds within government spaces. Since then, she used her platform to champion safer, more inclusive policies for marginalized communities, turning personal courage into national conversations about fairness and dignity. South Africa in 2024, before I move on, we'd like to also share a video to demonstrate Fiona's work. Thank you, Sheena.
I go by the name of Nhlanhla Fiona Tabata, aka Wagatik. I'm a 38-year-old transgender woman born in Duduza, 1496. I'm a social auxiliary worker by profession, working for Gauteng Department of Social Development at Emma's-Dal Child and Youth Care Center in Heidelberg. I work with girls from the age of 13 to 18, as girls with severe emotional behavioral problems that come here through a court order. The work that I do is not office-based 100% of the time. We in the office for filing, for paperwork and planning of the programs, because we even go outside to run our programs to different schools around here in Heidelberg and Rotanda.
Fiona umuntu who goes to the level yabantwana, like you would say ukuthi treat abantwana basekhaya like as a mother. Even them bam approach ngaleyo ndlela ukuthi mama bamabiza mamkhulu. So una that thing yokuthi ngisemsebenzini fine, but abantwana bambona beyond ukuthi usemsebenzini, bambona as umama.
I'm a mother of two handsome boys, a 19-year-old and a 7-year-old. Joking. Those are my late sister's kids. Then I raised them as my own. They call me mommy.
Fiona is a trans woman and a title holder for Miss Gay RSA.
The Queen of Davidton 2013, Miss Gay Soweto 2013, Miss Gay RSA 2017-18, Miss Lesbian Ekurhuleni 2018-19. Being part of my pageant, how has it helped to increase trans visibility? Well, it has assisted us in a lot of ways, because going back to my pageantry, it will be strictly by Miss Gay. Then expecting my gays only. Then I would apply. Then from being Miss Gay, then they will say, good, it's Miss Gay, Dontoni. Then when they give the contracts, also trans women, they're allowed to enter.
Fiona, she's very good in identifying ukuthi umntwana lo unenkinga eso. Ithi ngisebenzise a different approach. Uyayibona? She's very good in identifying gaps in terms of the needs of a particular child or a particular organization. Nala center sinabo abantwana aba belong to that community, and they are still shy to come out. So I remember there's this one, complete matric, Fiona assisted that child to be able to come out. Even Nati, when we bought impahla zakhe the matric dance, we had to go for the male, to the male department, because now she was confident of telling everybody ukuthi yena ubani. Out of the 56 staff members that we have in the center, only one was having a problem with her. I think it was because of her religion. But uFiona, like I said, uFiona akanandaba ukuthi umtreata kanjani. Uma une-problem naye phuma kuwo aqhubeke nalabo abamtreata ngendlela right.
Why do I think it is important to have equal visibility in the public sector? I believe we have the thing called sensitization of the public sector's facilities. So I would believe having a queer person working as a social auxiliary worker, it makes their life easier, and we become teachers, facilitators.
We were nominated, it was 2022, ukuthi abe a-voice for LGBTI for a Department of Social Development.
Last year, I was awarded as a Duduza Hero for a category Role Model and Activist of the Year LGBTI Gang. Future plans I have for queer advocacy. I see myself being a member of parliament, being the spokesperson or the advocate. My trans school, public sector, and above public sector. I see myself a parliament advocating. I see myself changing my Bill of Rights, where we've been last by a white paper. I see myself challenging those laws, changing those laws, and making the lives of transgender women very easy. Transgender women and transgender men in general, or trans people.
Thank you so much, Sheena. And I think, Fiona, the takeaway there is clearly just the courage, to rise above great adversity and still want to represent yourself and an entire community. And then we look again to South Africa. In 2024, we hosted an Integrity Icon alongside what we call the civic leaders. And these are the 3 icons from this year. So in 2024, the icons from South Africa once again reminded us of the breadth of integrity. Sergeant Tanda in the Eastern Cape was noted for leading his police force with fairness and respect. Sister Philomela works tirelessly in health services with dignity and persistence. And Nomonde advocates for accountability in rural development and land reform. Different professions, same principle, integrity in action. And then we looked at our civic leaders. We also recognize these civic leaders in an adaptation with our partners, the Amvukathrada Foundation, and also the Public Service Accountability Monitor. And one of these were Chantal Chetty, who uses media to empower young girls, while Khalil Ahmed stands firmly for honesty and moral leadership in Indonesia. Their stories remind us that integrity doesn't only live in government, it thrives in communities too. And what we're learning is that together, these icons represent a cross-section of South Africa. From rural policing to healthcare to civic leadership, each of them demonstrates that integrity is lived daily in ways that build trust, and ultimately that when integrity is recognized, when we name and fame it, it doesn't just inspire, it helps reset the norms for what we expect in governance. So, we have a reflection for you. I want to bring it back to you for a moment. Who in your department quietly lives with integrity every day? Is it you? Is it somebody else? What is one action, if made visible this month, would truly show constitutional values in practice? And if you filmed the 60-second story of service in your team, who would you feature? And most importantly, why? That reflection is what keeps Integrity Icon alive. So, as we close, I want to leave you with this thought. Integrity is not rare, it's just really rewarded, as Sheena so early pointed out. And that's what Integrity Icon does. We name and fame honest public servants by making their integrity visible. we celebrate role models and prove that accountability can be joyful, hopeful, and even contagious. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheena and Nasira, for keeping us abreast of the work of the Accountability Lab and for profiling and supporting our unsung heroes. Yesterday, as I spoke with Prof. Busadi Nglaweni, I said to him, we need to establish honesty and integrity labs throughout the country. We have to stop this competition for ridiculousness as leaders, in his words. He spoke of the competition for ridiculousness. This is what we are facing as a country. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to tell you a little bit about the two very modest speakers we just had, Sheena Adams and Nasira Noor Mohammed. They have been hiding in the background. Sheena Adams has worked in impact communications, news journalism, publishing and marketing in diverse roles for the past 20 years. She currently leads the communication strategy at Accountability Lab, and she has focused on creative communications that impacts governance systems and campaigns against corruption and inequality. Sheena is passionate about mentoring young writers and volunteers for the City of Johannesburg Josie My Josie Urban Upliftment Project. Speaking about Nasira Noor Mohammed, two modest ladies who delivered such a beautiful presentation with such smiles. She's the Communication and Marketing Manager for Accountability Lab. Nasira Noor Mohammed is a learning and development specialist with 10 years of experience in education, business analysis, and curriculum development. She's worked as a lecturer of African diplomacy and foreign policy at the University of Johannesburg and lectured in international relations at Monash, South Africa, teaching over 250 undergraduate students. Nasira also designed and wrote a social equity curriculum known as the Power Girls program. That's interesting. And to date has enrolled over 2,000 young girls living in some of the most vulnerable communities in South Africa. So really amazing work being done there, and we really welcome that. Moving on in our program, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really happy that we hosted this webinar on a Wednesday. You know, Friday afternoons generally are just out, but Friday afternoons in the public service are quite special. It's when the email arrives, it's marked urgent, but by Monday, somehow that urgency has usually disappeared. And sometimes they say it's been overtaken by 3 brand new urgencies. That is the drone of the public service currently. Moving on to the part of the program where guests on the platform may engage with our thought leaders, question, clarify, propose, make proposals, and discuss on issues that are pertinent and that which come to your mind, the issues that are burning. I now open up the platform for this part of the session. Thank you so much to our speakers for really going and sticking and abiding by the time. Guests, may you please indicate using your icons on the app so that I may schedule the contributors chronologically. So the platform is now open for your contributions as distinguished guests. At this stage, I'm not picking up any hands on the platform unless someone else is working through another window and can assist me.
We have a hand, Commissioner.
All right. I'm on this part of the platform. I actually can't see any of the hands that are raised. If you could please assist me.
Not a problem. Can I unmute them? It's Rasi Rasamula.
Okay. Mr. Rasamula? You're most welcome.
All right. No, thank you very much, Commissioner Barkas. I want to go straight to the presentation by Professor Bonang Mohale, and I think Professor touched on a very pertinent issue about some of the corruptions in the Department of Health. And my question to the professor, I don't want to ask it direct to the Public Service Commission because will be more like scoring own goals. I need to check with the professor as to say, are whistleblowers protected, or are they supposed to be protected? Or should we turn a blind eye on malfeasance? That is the question to Professor Mohale. And then the other question goes straight to Professor Itumeleng Nakedi, the commissioner in the Free State. And I want to take it to Section 196, which is the Public Service Commission. And they are construed as the watchdogs in the public service. And when you look at Section 196, subsection 4, Roman italic figure 4, where it talks about the appointments as well as the transfer and so on and stuff like that. But I know Professor Fikeni has touched it on previously. It is in relation to the media coverage on some of the appointment, of which Professor, I'm sure, knows about it, like that one. I just want to give an example of that one, to say, look, if the one that is, in social development, about the 22-year-old chief of staff. Now, maybe Professor Nakedi would explain to us, perhaps, say, look, if such incidents are reported, what is the ultimate results if they were to find that proper processes in terms of recruitment were not followed, they were flawed. I want to term this thing as some kind of a corporate moral decay, because there are a lot of infringements on the provisions as per the public service regulations. So I just want to tap onto the brains of the two professors. Thanks, Commissioner Barkas.
Thank you very much for your questions to the professors. I'm going to take as many questions as possible and then allow each professor then to respond to the questions that have been directed to them. Are there any more questions or any more participants on the platform on the discussion section?
Yes, there are two more. Kumala, you may go ahead.
Thank you.
Kumalo, you may unmute and continue.
Is it Mr. Kumalo?
We have a Kumala and
Can't
we've got a
tell.
Kepareng.
All right. I don't know if it's Mr. or Ms. I can't see from my side, but can you
Yes,
unmute? Yes, you are audible. Great. Please proceed.
yeah,
Please proceed.
thank you. Yeah, this is Dr. Forten Kumalo in Mpumalanga Education. Yeah, my interest is on Prof. Mohale. Yeah, he talked about a scenario where we tend to follow the warmth. And yeah, it was quite interesting. If he could just maybe give more perspective, how can we avoid following the warmth so that we become active role players? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kumalo. Thank you so much for your question. The next guest on the platform. Could somebody help me with the name?
It's Kepareng. You may continue.
Thank you, Kepareng. Mr. or Ms. Kepareng.
It's Ms. Kepareng Dompi. Thank you so much for the. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you. I think mine cuts across both Prof. Mohale and Prof. Nakedi, just to say that we talk about values and the importance thereof. And we note that there should be a congruence or harmony between your personal values and the values of the profession or even of government in this instance. But then my question is, how do we ensure that there is that congruency, given the fact that families are at this point not empowered to deal with the social ills that are out there, but more importantly, they are not even able to or seem to be able to instill the values that we have been talking about of integrity and respect and that. And we see that playing itself out in schools and in other places where and either youth or children. How do we work towards ensuring that the values that we are referring to are values that are instilled by families? Because one could argue that what we see in the quality of service, it not being of the standard that we would want to be, could it be the fact that we do not have the values that could actually assist us in that regard? And because there is no congruency, therefore, we seem to act out what we learned as children from our family. I'm just saying, how do we bring about the balance? Because for me, I think that might assist us in ensuring that we have an ethical professional service delivery in that. Thank you.
We have one more from Miller.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miller?
Good morning. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, it's Ms. Miller, right?
Yes, it's Miller. Thank you. I also have a question for the Prof. Actually for the two, as well as the Commissioner, the Prof and the Commissioner. What is your thought on the influence of education, especially basic education, in terms of including ethics in their curriculum? I know it's quite easy, for the curriculum, and maybe it's not easy, but that the curriculum is influenced by what is socially happening in our country, whether they teach them about LO and the issues within the LO, but to make ethics as a standing subject within the basic education, so that we don't teach ethics or speak about ethics just as something to talk about. Yes, the expectation is that homes bring up their kids in a particular way, in an integrity way, and that kids understand what is right and what is wrong. And we would also agree that we come from different homes that have different principles. But will it, and I'm just also asking, what is the thought? What is your thinking? Because I wholly dip the belief that it will help the country, that this is entrenched when the kids are still young. Ethics is entrenched when they are still young, and it becomes a formal thing. We don't talk about ethics just in passing, but it's formalized within the education space. And I just wanted to find out, what is the thinking into that, and how do we start influencing what our children learn in the schools without necessarily having to wait for a white paper or whatever, but that as a community, as a society, we then decide this is what we want our children to learn. And I would also want to believe, once these teachers know the importance of teaching this, it will also become part of their day-to-day work and their lives, as well as teachers. I think recently we've heard of a number of stories of teachers that abusing children within the schools, that are taking advantage of girl children and young children falling pregnant. And it is because in some cases, it is the teachers that are perpetrators. And that affects the integrity, the integrity of the society. So how do we start running and influencing what is taught within our schools, but not just anything, but to have integrity and ethics taught while the kids are young, and it becomes a formal or is formalized within the education space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Miller. Any more questions? Any more participants on the platform?
No, we've covered all.
We're done. All right. Thank you very much. May I then hand over professor by professor to respond to the various questions? We'll start with Professor Mohale.
Thank you very much, Chair. You can still hear me, right?
Yes, absolutely. We can hear you. We can see you clearly. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, just some sound bites starting ka Ras Sisimula about whistleblowers. Our law is actually quite adequate. There's nothing wrong with our laws. Even if we did not have a whistleblowing legislation, for instance, common law can be used and then you prosecute the people that have been implicated in whistleblowing. But we just saw that the department, when confronted with a whistleblower, instead of looking at the veracity of wasting money on this New York trip, they fire the spokesperson and put her on suspension leave. So I think our problem is the very same people we are trying to report whistleblowing to are the subject of what Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi was complaining about. General Mkhwanazi, that the rod, it's not only against my boss as a Natal commissioner, which is the national commissioner, but it goes up to the Minister of Police. Imagine what type of courage it takes. And he says some of these people that are implicated actually are in the National Assembly. But also, you can see that business itself is not serious because business is still hobnobbing with people that are known to have aided and abetted state capture, in particular McKinsey and Bain and Company, that were suspended from organizations like Business Leadership South Africa. So there's a piece around government, but there's also a piece around business. And really, I just want to focus on this one, that business itself, a serious intervention is needed to steer it back. And what is needed today is an incisive, decisive leadership, which only business itself can provide. Dr. Forten Khumalo, I think to avoid following the sun, let's be clear about what our challenge is. China is one problem, and it's 1.4 billion people problem. It doesn't try to obfuscate it. South Africa has one problem, and it's jobs, because it is the stubbornly high levels of unemployment that then lead to increasing levels of poverty and increasing levels of inequality. It's not a triple challenge. The root cause is one, is just jobs. I never thought that in my lifetime I'll see 800 doctors qualified just in the province of Gauteng are now unemployed and are suffering from mental health issues and period poverty. 100,000 young students finished their studies in 2022, but couldn't graduate because they owe universities some money. Kibaleng Twampe on values and this congruence. You see, you have internal congruence when what you think, say, and do is one and the same. If misalignment, you get an ulcer. And can we start teaching it early on? The values of honesty, integrity, and respect are universal. That's how we were brought up. Our grandparents say, when you play in the St. Pete's, give space to other children, don't take things that don't belong to you, always say thank you. So here about values, I think we not even, and I combine it with Mila Ntlaba's question, how can we start influencing at basic education level? And I agree with you. But remember, we are 31 years into democracy. We've got the best constitution in the world. Not because we are clever. We're not even teaching that constitution in our schools. We're not teaching it. Let alone the fact that the 400 MPs don't even know that their job description is contained in chapter 195 of our constitution. And it's the best, not because of what's in the main body, because of the one-pager preamble and its 3 principles. So that's why our history today, 31 years into democracy, still starts in 1652. as if black people didn't exist then. We have even erased the story of Vasco da Gama, who landed at the Cape and called it the Cape of Great Storms. When the Dutch come, they call it the Cape of Good Hope. We remember the Cape of Good Hope, not that Bartholomew Dias was the first one to land there. Similarly, the Battle of San Juan is being told by other people, not by us. The story of Ushaka, of Umziligas, of Mutei Wasichaba, Sabasutu, Mrena Mushweshwe, the first. In our schools today, even in our universities, even when you choose literature as a major, you're not reading the books by Inwapele Madingwane, Matsimela Manaka, and Professor Eskia Mpahlele. You're reading books that were there before the measure of the Democratic Party of Tony Leon and the new National Party to form an alliance called the Democratic Alliance. That's the books we are still reading. I will leave it to my other learned friend.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think you've more than covered it in terms of what has been said. May I then invite Professor Nakedi to respond to the matters that were raised for yourself?
Thank you very much, Chair. I think Prof. Mohale covered quite a few of already raised issues. You see, the issue of a staff member who is 22 years old, and this now brings us to how we do our work in our various locations within the public service and also private sector. The first thing that really irks people's consciousness is the issue of age, which is ageism, basically. So the question is, can a person of 22-year-old be fit to render public service? If you have the answer for that, the second one would be the experience and so on. So it is difficult for us to answer that one here on this platform because we haven't really investigated, because you cannot give an outcome of something that you have not investigated. However, whatever we do must be done so without prejudice to anyone and in a fair manner, without any favor as well. So it's a matter that at the right time will receive attention if necessary. But we do hear the lamentations and we do hear the concerns. And these concerns, one can really vouch that all the commissioners led by Prof. Fikeni are always, concerned about what comes up, and they are not left unattended. So at the right time, if necessary, a pronouncement will be made. But when we do our work, we must not do it with prejudices towards anybody. I think that one, I must leave it there. You see, the issue of values has been covered by Prof. Mohale adequately, but suffice it to say that professional values and all these things, interacting with personal values, are important to really, if you like, stay far away from social ills, corruption, and malfeasance. And these things of corruption and so on, you find them in all spaces. So, I mean, in schools, SGBs, some of them with connivance of some of the principals, not all, they would sell post vacancies and so on. For us, really, the challenge is public leadership, because these things, if the public leaders with executive authority and elsewhere in the political sphere do really commit to the social ethics, social morality, and so on, ensuring accountability, most of these things will not happen. So the gap really arises in terms of our commitment to public leadership. And if that can be addressed at all levels from above, I think we'll be able to more than 50% address most of these issues. You see, the issue of influence of the curriculum, we often do not want to acknowledge it because there's been a lot of depoliticization of nation building. But, ideology plays a very critical part in curriculum. And we can talk about ethics as a standing part of the curricula, but we also have our own homegrown values that we don't, take heart to. There is nothing stopping us to integrate ethics and all these issues that we are talking about into our own principles of Botu, Ubuntu, Batupele principles. Those are our own, and they resonate with who we are, where we come from, and so on. Because also sometimes linguistics plays a major role in us being able to understand or not understand what we are on about. And partly also the issue of curriculum, as Prof. Mohale has mentioned, without naming it, is an essential issue that speaks to coloniality and decoloniality. So there's still a lot of work there in terms of what needs to be done. We need to debate. The fourth industrial revolution is here. Whether are there kids whose, if you go to Model C schools, you would find that if you were to do a survey, a random one, you would find that most of the historically disadvantaged kids, socially and economically, they would be put into the stream of functional maths, or what do they call it these days, but whatever it is, and they should not do maths as we know it. So is it correct? Is it right? Does it mean if you are poor, you cannot do maths? You cannot understand maths? Why do you understand other subjects? What is unique about maths? Because maths is applicable to all the subjects because it's about logic and other things. So similarly, you would find that our universities are not properly regulated. And as a result, we have a massive problems at that level, in that space, to a point that we cannot obviously, faced with those kind of challenges, embark on a social cohesion project that will build our nation, because there's been a lot that is happening there. You would find a faculty of engineering, for example, producing more people from other countries in terms of graduation than our own. So what do we do? How do we regulate without excluding?
I think we seem to have lost Prof. Nakedi for a short while. Is there any way we can get Prof. Nakedi back in to finish up?
He will have to rejoin the session, but I think we can maybe continue.
All right. Thank you. So thank you, professors. If Prof. Nakedi comes in, we'll note somebody will let me know, and then he'll be let in to obviously finish up, because he was unfortunately interrupted mid-sentence. But I can really say to those people who raise questions that as a former public servant, I can attest to the fact that one often sees the dislocation between personal values and professional values in the public service, especially when it comes to financial management. Particularly myself, I like the question by Ms. Muller, who wants to influence the basic education curriculum to include ethics education. And personally, I think our current curriculum took the joy out of learning and teaching for teachers and learners. It looks more like a job description with performance assessments along the way. And yes, I think we have to introduce other principles and values in the, what do they call it, LO, life orientation model. Prof, are you back with us? Just checking.
Yes.
Welcome,
I'm back,
Prof.
sorry I got cut.
It's all right. You're most welcome to
I'm sorry
finish
about
up, Prof.
Yes, but I think the point was made to say, for example, Chair, as the Public Service Commission, as someone has referred to our mandate in Chapter 10, we are mandated to actually ensure that a developmental state is there based on values and principles of the Constitution. However, we are also restricted in terms of our capacity because of the fiscus, the austerity measures that are applied by government. We are an independent constitutional body, but if we do not get the financial support adequate to our mandate, we are impeded in doing our work. And one of the issues that may address this particular challenge is the PSC bill, which seeks to address some of the gaps which were created when the national legislation was formulated. In the Constitution, the mandate of the PSC, Public Service Commission, includes all organs of state, all spheres of government, and public entities. However, the national legislation has excluded some of these, including local government and public entities. So the PSC remedies that particular, if you like, omission or gap. And the sooner that can happen with the support of legislators and other important stakeholders, I think the better it will assist and empower the PSC to really get into the space of doing their work adequately and address all these issues. And this is very paramount. So it is an ongoing engagement, and we are looking forward to positive results from Treasury and government in general, because this is a government issue. It's not a departmental issue. And the PSC would now become wholly on its own and independent from government departments. And these are some of the limitations that we find that through this constitutional democracy that is very important, we have made some of the errors unintentionally, probably in a hurry to ensure that we run government. However, having realized and identified them, we are remedying those kind of gaps that we created. And hopefully these issues will be addressed. Suffice it in conclusion to say, Chair, wherever there is a furor or an issue that affects public administration, we will not neglect that particular space. We will address it. But we only pronounce once we are concluding or have concluded the investigations, because otherwise it would prejudice the process and then it will not stand in the end. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Prof. Nakedi. I just wanted to add a little bit more on the question of, by Ms. Kebeleng, on the question of how do we empower families. I'm asked to release my video. Okay. A new program was introduced by the Public Service Commission. It was called the Family Summit, and it's led by Commissioner Ngwenya. It's the first, and it was launched earlier this year in the Free State, where Professor Nakedi is the resident commissioner. And it seeks to do exactly that. It empowers families. But here again, unfortunately, our hands are tied because the lack of funds impedes this program being rolled out throughout the country. And of course, Commissioner Nakedi spoke to our funding challenges. We would welcome, for the risk of sounding like I'm lobbying, we would welcome any institution that wants to partner with us on rolling out these family summits so that we could speak to families about, how we could empower them along the lines of bringing the harmony, as Ms. Kebaleng said, between our professional values and our personal values. So I think this is an important thing. So today, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests on the platform, as we reflect on building an effective and efficient service, let us remember that our Constitution gives us not only a legal mandate, it also gives us a moral mandate. It calls on us to serve with dignity, with integrity, with accountability, and perhaps just a touch of humor along the way as well, ladies and gentlemen. You know, we spoke about, we spoke about things lightly as well, but there are serious submissions that have been made. And as we come to the close of today's session, we see that an effective and efficient public service built on a foundation of constitutional values is very important. We have today with us Commissioner Sekgonya to share his closing remarks with us and to thank all of our speakers and participants for their insights. Let me say a few words on Commissioner Sekgonya, who is our resident commissioner for the province of Limpopo. Commissioner Sekgonya holds a master's degree in public administration and holds an MBA as well, a master's in business administration. He's been a municipal manager. He's been a general manager for the Department of Traditional Affairs at the Limpopo Provincial Government, and he's been a chief director as well, dealing with democratic governance and disaster management. A very sober, a deep thinker, and also one of our thought leaders. I now welcome Commissioner Makgorula Sekgonya to give us the closing remarks and the way forward and the vote of thanks. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Program Director, Commissioner Barkas. Let me firstly acknowledge the chairperson of the Public Service Commission, Professor Fikeni, the Deputy Chair, Commissioner Mkolomba, Prof. Nakedi and other commissioners, Prof. Mohale, our partners and colleagues from the NSG, other officials on this platform, and our colleagues from Accountability Lab. Thank you so much, Chairperson, for the opportunity you gave me to render a vote of thanks and closure on this important occasion. Program Director, thank you for your ability to guide and steer today's program so seamlessly. Your leadership has ensured a smooth flow of proceedings, and we truly appreciate your dedication and professionalism. You have always been available to assist whenever called upon, Commissioner Barkas. On behalf of the Public Service Commission South Africa, I wish to extend our sincere and heartfelt gratitude to all distinguished speakers for their valuable time, insightful contributions, and thought-provoking perspectives shared with us today on this thought leadership. Your expertise and vision have truly enriched the session and given us new ways of thinking about the challenges and opportunities ahead. The ideas and lessons you have shared will not only inspire us, but also guide us in applying practical solutions in our respective leadership and management field. A special thank you goes to our participants, both physical and online, for engaging so actively. Your questions, your reflections added depth to the dialogue. I know colleagues have also raised issues around whistleblowing and corruption. And I just want to make an example that we as the Public Service Commission have made an investigation at the notorious Tembisa Hospital, and particular recommendations were made. The story around Babita Jodaren came at a later stage. And we look forward to building on today's discussions and continuing this journey, acknowledging sharing and collaboration. And I want to take this opportunity to thank our Deputy Chairperson, Commissioner Mkolomba, for the warm words of welcome and sharing an overview of the PSC mandate, and for your sterling work in steering the PSC, particularly during this exciting period of repositioning. I know you, the chairperson, and other commissioners have played a central role in this regard. But that, just to mention that we have had a memorable Prof. Stan Sangweni inaugural memorial lecture delivered by President Thabo Mbeki over the last weekend. I'd also thank you, Deputy Chairperson, for sharing your insight on the purpose of this thought leadership webinar, particularly on working with others in this journey of professionalization of the public service. A special thanks to Prof. Bonam Mohale, the Chancellor of the University of the Free State, on the insights into the high standard of professional ethics as a catalyst for ethical and professional public service, and also on social cohesion and Ubuntu, as you have mentioned. Your contributions today exemplify the very essence of thought leadership, challenging assumptions, inspiring reflections, and presenting innovative pathways forward. We are grateful for the time and effort you devoted to preparing and sharing your expertise with us. And there are actually particular issues that you have raised in your presentation, Prof, around the quality of leadership at local level. You raise also issues around poverty, unemployment, and inequality, which are prevalent in our country, but around people following the sun, but also on the centrality of public service officials as infinitive hopes for the poor and the vulnerable in the country. And I want to take this opportunity and thank Commissioner Nakedi, our Public Service Commissioner from the Free State. Thank you, Prof, for your insight into the topical issues of getting public servants to be more intentional in improving service delivery. We know that communities are facing service delivery challenges in the country, hence the erosion of the legitimacy of government and high demonstration of people not taking part in electoral process. You have cited the constitutional values and principles that are in Section 195 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. But more importantly, that we have to institutionalize and internalize these constitutional values and principles, and that we have to live up to these constitutional values and principles. But to our colleagues at Accountability Lab, thank you so much, Sheena and Nazira, and thank you for sharing good stories and lessons on integrating the government commitment to ensure a better life for all, and these constitutional values and principles, and for sharing your international and national experiences. Lastly, I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to the DG, Advocate Duve, and the organizing team for their outstanding effort we put in making this event so memorable and a success. Your hard work, attention to details, and commitment ensure that everything ran smoothly and created an impactful experience for all participants. From planning to execution, your teamwork and dedication were evident in every aspect. Thank you for going the extra mile to deliver such a well-coordinated and memorable event. Your contributions have truly made a difference and is deeply valued. With that being said, I want to take this opportunity and thank you all. And thank you so much, Commissioner Baccus, for giving me this opportunity. I thank you.
Thank you very much, my colleague, Commissioner Makgorula Sekgonya. It was really a wonderful vote of thanks. Thank you for availing yourself despite your busy schedule this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been a wonderful audience on the platform. We thank you for your engagement, the sharp engagement that you had with our thought leaders. We thank our thought leaders. Until we meet again, keep serving with purpose, with values, and maybe even with a sense of humor. And look forward to having you again on our next Thought Leadership webinar.